Hello and welcome to Cinema Craptaculus, where we say a bad movie is just as hard to make as a good one, just a lot easier to make fun of. This is Dave, and with me are my uncrappy co-hosts,
Tara.
And John.
All right, here we go. He's been a grumpy old boxer. He's been a grumpy old vet. Now he's a grumpy old superhero and supervillain. It's Sylvester Stallone in Samaritan.
Here's the rapid recap to catch you up.
Rapid recap!
13-year-old Sam Cleary, Javon Walton, suspects that his mysterious and reclusive neighbor, Mr. Smith, Sylvester Stallone, is actually a legend hiding in plain sight. 20 years ago, Granite City's superpowered vigilante Samaritan was reported dead after a fiery warehouse battle with his rival and twin brother, Nemesis. Most believe Samaritan perished in the fire, but some in the city, like Sam, have hope that he is still alive. With crime on the rise and the city on the brink of chaos, Sam makes it his mission to coax his neighbor out of hiding to save the city from ruin and be a good Samaritan.
Samaritan!
Oh,
Thank you, Amazon.
Boy. Oh, boy.
I don't know if
You know-
that movie deserved my intro.
You know what? That makes you a good Samaritan, John, for doing such a nice job of
I
reading
think we're
that.
good Samaritans for humoring Dave and not strangling him for this movie.
Every time I start a Sylvester Stallone movie, I'm like, why do I watch Sylvester Stallone movies? And then I watch the Sylvester Stallone movie, I'm like, I like Sylvester Stallone.
Well,
I
you
mean,
guys reviewed Over the Top for B-Sides,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Which was awesome.
Which was probably his best movie, in my opinion.
I think they took the digital CGI head from Over the Top with a goatee and used it for a scene in this, but we'll get to that later.
Oh, 100% that they did. Yes. Yeah, and it was a very bad rendering. It's a very bad rendering of that face.
A youngifying. It always when they youngify a face, it always looks a little off, even if they take from that time.
I don't know.
If they,
I feel like I've seen it done a couple. Like, I remember Ant-Man and the Wasp, you know, when they youngified Michael Douglas? I thought that was pretty good.
I'm going out on a limb and suggesting they don't quite have Marvel budget here.
They didn't? That's a
they
surprise.
didn't have DC budget after the merger with Discovery.
So as I understand it, this film was an acquisition. It wasn't like Amazon Studios funded. I think this was because it's an MGM movie, which Amazon owns, but I think it was intended at some point, as a lot of films tend to be, to go theatrically. And I believe that Stallone was a little, like a lot of people, tend to be a little nonplussed, but then ultimately gets on board with like, look, this is how it's going to be seen. And trust me, you'll get more eyeballs, Sly. And he's no stranger to direct-to-video format, but he's been able to
Nor is Frank Stallone.
Frank Stallone. He should have been in this, was he? Maybe he played his twin.
Maybe he was a body double.
I mean...
Oh, where to start?
I think I have a really good start for us. So in this movie, Sylvester Stallone's job as a person is he's a garbage man. Okay, so we meet him. He's a garbage man, and this particular city is absolutely the grossest, most garbage-filled city I've ever seen on screen. In addition to the fact that I was like, oh, they just went to downtown LA right now and just filmed this straight without any production design. But it's a really good metaphor for this movie. He is a garbage man. His job is to take out garbage. And yet, this city is only covered in garbage all of the time. So he is terrible at his job. That's what I have.
Well, there's just so much garbage he can't possibly get it all. But he does take broken electronics and try to fix them.
I mean, maybe if he's...
The residents cosplay as garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they do.
I mean, maybe if he spent less time like sifting and dumpster diving, that he could actually throw away some of this city's garbage. It's...
Actually, he's taking more garbage out than he's putting in.
Yes, he is.
So... garbage is the disease, he's the cure.
And he's not a very good cure, guys, is what I'm going to say.
He's more of a parasite.
He kind of doesn't help.
So I think this movie, there's a lot of films that are aspirational. This one is aspirational, and it wants to be a really cool superhero movie in the vein of M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable. And there were a lot of references to that. So, for instance, just going to throw one out. In that, the hero's weak point is water. And in this one, they flip at it and say that's the thing that helps him. So it was a little kind of a nod to Unbreakable. And then, of course, they nodded to RoboCop by literally making the city try to be as shitty as Detroit in that movie. And there was a RoboCop video game in one of the scenes. So this film really wanted to aspire to be, like, the writer had all these other cool films it had seen. And then they got to talking about what the budget would allow.
We could use trash. We could just throw stuff all over the ground.
We can use L.A. We have L.A.
It was shot in Atlanta.
Yeah, it wasn't even L.A.
Yeah, they made a good job
but
of...
It looks like L.A.
Sure does.
Here's the part I admire. That it was... So it stars this young kid, Javon Walton, and he wasn't super precocious, and it seemed like he lived in a world where he was actually in danger.
Yeah.
As opposed to like a Disney show where the kids are funnier, faster, smarter than all the adults. Here, it felt like early 80s kids movies like Cloak and Dagger or Goonies or other films where there's an actual underlying current of danger for this kid.
Yeah, the bullies will really kick your ass, like face in hospital kick your ass.
Yeah, also his bullies were adults. Like, they could have actually killed him. I was like, there's a one scene where he's getting beaten up and he's like, I'm gonna, like, the guy with like the weird dreads. I was like, oh, they're gonna kill this child. like this, they're not pulling back punches at all. I was like, oh my God.
No.
And I thought it was funny that his main, the kid with the dreads was the same height as a 12-year-old boy. And I guess he was kind of the leader of their subset of the gang because he had like these two henchmen.
Yeah.
But he seemed like the least respectable gangster ever.
Well, this is like gangster rap Oliver Twist. So that dread guy was like the Artful Dodger, but instead of being like nurturing to young Oliver, pulling him into Fagin and Bill Sykes' gang, he's like a rival and wants to kick his ass every second.
Yeah.
So I did enjoy that part, that there was this underlying, and I mean, I really that charmed me. The kid charmed me. I thought he was really good. But then they I think they had a lot of great ideas in the script, but then kind of hit the wall of like, to get Sylvester Stallone, we have to do X, Y, and Z to his character so that he'll play him. And here's the big thing I had against this movie. What were the rules? Because
yes.
thematically, they were kind of all over the place. So the boy is like, I need to learn how to fight. I always run away. I'm a coward. But all he does in the movie is try to kick ass.
Yeah.
He doesn't even run away. He's like, there's a scene like in the midpoint where he's like shadow boxing with Sylvester Stallone, and Sylvester Stallone's like, go ahead and punch me. And the kid goes to punch him, and he steps backwards, and he's like, I always do that. Every time I throw a punch, I step backwards because I'm a coward. But like 3 scenes ago, he was being chased by these mini gangsters, and he went and punched them. He like pushes them out of the way. And then the other one, so I was like, so what are you trying to learn, kid? And the other one was the water. Because in the middle of the movie, Sylvester Stallone, what's his name? John Smith gets injured.
It's Joe Smith. Let's be clear.
Joe Smith.
Very
That's right. That's
totally identifiable name. Jesus.
John Smith is actually a character from the DC universe who plays Steel, I believe. Joe Smith gets injured, and his body's all broken up, and it almost has a meltdown.
Yes.
And then and they're like, let's get you water, let's get you ice cream, let's put a towel around your head because that lets heat out, I guess. The idea being that his body generates energy, and when it like is trying to heal itself, it generates so much energy that it overheats and it risks giving him a heart attack. So at the very end, he's getting shot. He's getting thrown around. He's getting hit. He's getting all these things. And I'm like, do you need water? And when they finally get water, it's like a squirt gun of water, and he's like, I'm okay, I'm alive.
But he's also in the middle of a burning building.
A burning fire, that's right!
Well, just going back to the origin, it's like, to your point, they need to set up the world, and they do this sort of weird prologue with this sort of, weird kind of 3D animation, sort of where they shot the actors, and then they sort of mat them with animation to try to mimic what like other higher budgeted films do. And it's sort of like these two twins.
Give it a comic book feel.
Yeah, he and his brother, assuming he is Samaritan, were mutants, essentially. There's no other superheroes or villains or superpowered beings. And they're born to a family that receives a lot of flack because what are they like? They think they're witches or who, and the town burns the parents. And that sets the two brothers on a very divergent course where they both dress alike. That's something I didn't get. It's like they both wear this sort of armor as both the villain and hero, which was sort of like, usually the superhero dress is completely different from the villain. This is like they're on like the football players with different colored uniforms. And so you don't really know what their powers are. And I think that's almost like from day to day of shooting, they weren't sure what they could afford. They're like, well, what do we got? Well, we got a rig. Oh, so he could throw someone. Well, he could, but the rig only goes 5 feet. Well, okay. And then the next day, they're like, hey, we got a couple extra feet of cable. So if he throws someone, they can go an extra 10 feet. So it sounds like they made up his powers as they went.
But they also made up his ability to, like, how he gets hurt. Because, again, like, sometimes he gets super hurt, but then, like, he's, like, walking into, like, everybody's shooting him with bullets. But then there's a point where he's, like, hiding behind something. I'm like, well, why are you hiding behind something if bullets don't hurt you?
Is he bulletproof? Or is he like Logan and he heals himself? They didn't make that clear.
It didn't make clear. I also feel like the other big problem, in addition to not defining, like, their powers is, yes, we see that we have a city that's in chaos and turmoil, but we don't see any stakes, like, okay, it's not like X equals Y. It's not like the city is terrible because the mayor took the money. Like, it's not like Batman. And to me, like, Gotham City, you know why Gotham's corrupt. Because everybody that runs the city is corrupt and they're monsters and, like, all they have is Bruce Wayne to sort of look out for it. Which I felt like there was also too many parallels to Batman in this movie that obviously they couldn't make exactly Batman, but then they just, like, they'd set it up. Just like, this is a terrible city. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
I mean, is there, like...
Well, the villain can just serve it. RoboCop is a great example of a film where there's a villain, and then you find out that the villain works for a really bad corporate villain. And so there's sort of like the guy behind the guy, so that the villain turns out to be a bit of a henchman. This one, there's a straight-up villain who, as a child, emulated who he thought was the villain. And he hijacks a bunch of these, like, EMP grenades, and I guess he wants chaos, but what he really wants is to just take over as his childhood villain idol and just be him. There's no real objective.
I've got a weird note here, but since we're talking about, I'll call him new Nemesis, because basically what he does is he steals Nemesis' costume and puts
Nemesis
it on.
2.0.
Yeah, Nemesis 2.0. He had weird facial hair for the mask. So he put the mask on, and he had, like, this pointy beard that had, like, beads in it or something. And so the pointy beard stuck out from under the mask, and I was like, is he trying to have a secret identity? Is he trying to pass himself off as old Nemesis, just, like, with a new chin beard?
Again, he had the same problem as, like, the city. It's like, okay, we know that this guy's our antagonist, but, like, he doesn't ever say one time except, like, I really like Nemesis. Like, well, why? And, like, he has, like, the girl that's with him, and she's like, he saved me when I was 8. Okay, so then... Okay, well, so why do you owe him?
Well, he does say that in his mind, he believed that big fire, that sort of the fallout that took out supposedly both hero and villain twins, that Nemesis had a plot to start chaos. And so he has thought all along that there was this sort of end game that didn't get completed, kind of like Bane was fulfilling Ra's al Ghul's goal of taking down Gotham. And there was even a parallel where he puts the mask on, rouses all these people in the neighborhood who just come out.
Yeah, also just come out.
Yeah, and he's got like a fur collared jacket just like Bane, and he's like, and I'm giving you back the city to you, the people. And there's a total ripoff. I don't think it was an homage. I think it was a ripoff of Bane.
Yeah.
And all these people come out for it. If it's a blackout and you're in an inner city, is that your instinct to just go out to the street?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Where the looters are?
And they were so easily manipulated into a mob.
Right.
He was just like, we should have chaos. And they're like, yeah, let's have chaos. All right.
It's like the writers had just seen the ending of Joker, what Joaquin Phoenix.
Yes.
Like, oh, let's put that in and have people just be. And then they immediately put on the Halloween masks that he brought along to be little Nemesis 2.5s. And then they're going to just go what? Just break shit?
Again, what do those people want? Like, they just want TVs? Okay, cool. Like, or do they want food? Like, what are they so mad about? Besides the fact that, like, the garbage people are obviously terrible at their jobs in this city.
Well, I mean, to be fair, now they've rioted and made more garbage.
They have. They've made it worse.
There's more job security for Joe Smith.
That's
So Stallone is, your go-to for three-dimensional, highly layered acting performances. We know this. He is, when you need to really mine the depths of character and humor and tragedy and all those emotions, he's the guy. And I think that he really delivered in his stoicism. I mean, it looks like I know people get older and they kind of stiffen up, but he just...
Oh, he stiffened up with Botox.
No, he has there. I was like trying to, they do.
Allegedly.
They do want, towards the end, I have a note here where he's fighting the bad guy, right? And there's fire behind him and they get an extreme close up. And I was like, oh no. No one needed that. Stop. So why are you like, oof, you could see the hair plugs. You could see the lip fillers. And like, listen.
4K is not the friend.
It was not your friend, Sly. You should not have allowed that. But I was like, I looked it up because I was like, shit, how old is he? He's 76.
Jeez.
Look, as a friend said very hilariously years ago, he said that guy's autopsy is going to be an X-File. I've seen him with his shirt off as recently as the Expendables movies. And I mean, he's in amazing shape. That's his job, his whole life. And he was doing the HGH long before it was, okay to do it. Chris Hemsworth. And so I give him credit for doing whatever he can. But the problem is, and you see it with a lot of actresses too, is that we, the viewers, just intuitively know how old people are. Especially if you followed a star. So no matter how well you sort of preserve yourself, we just know you're old. And some, Clint Eastwood never tried to hide that. Really, I mean, he may be younger leading ladies in the 90s, but he reached a point where he's like, I'm never. No hair plugs. And Harrison Ford, same thing. I feel like Meryl Streep is kind of in that world too.
Yeah.
Stallone refuses to. I couldn't tell if some of those stunts. I mean, I give him credit. He did pull off some of the fights, I guess.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But you're right. There was points where he's getting like tossed around. And I don't know the parameters of what he's capable of because they didn't establish really what he could do in the flashback.
No.
Yeah. I mean, there was parts of me, like there was some stuff towards the end, that long fight scene at the very end, like the big one. There's stuff you could tell he's actually doing. And I was like, holy shit, like look at him go. Like that's amazing. But at the same time, like when he throws somebody, you're like, even if he is the strongest man on earth, like the force doesn't make sense for what just happened to that guy. Like he kind of just put his hands on one guy and kind of like flinged him, but the guy goes like crashing through walls in like a car. Yeah. And you're like, wait, hold on. Can we back up? Like see, again, I hand it to a man who's over 75 to like bend over at all, let alone throw a guy. But I was like, we're stretching the like laws of physics.
It's making me very nervous for Indiana Jones 5 because I felt like when I watched the last Indiana Jones, the most amazing thing he did was bound up a bunch of boxes. Like I couldn't jump up, I couldn't run up like that.
Yeah, you know what? How he did that? Industrial Light and Magic. Because
I was like, wires?
My roommate from college did that.
Wow. That's amazing.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't have the budget, so Stallone probably actually did more than the budget would have likely allowed in the insurance. But let's go back to these villains because I just think that I guess the casting directors did a really good job of casting people, but it's another one of those films or TV shows that really doesn't shed a nice light on tattooed and pierced people because it's sort of like we don't want to judge a book by its cover, but it seems like when you see these inner city gangs, they're pierced and tatted up, and they went to town with these villains.
Yeah.
Here's a couple of things on the villains. First of all, the main villain, the lead villain, I don't know what his name
wasn't
is.
Wasn't he from Game of Thrones?
Nemesis.
Wasn't he like...
I think he was.
Greyjoy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yes, he was. I forget,
He was Greyjoy?
He plays good villain.
He plays good villain.
He's got a good face.
He had the Nemesis logo tattooed on his face and his chest.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like just hanging out on his face, but... There's a reveal of the one on his chest when he's talking to the kid. He's like, in case you haven't seen the one on my face when you've been looking at it, here's one on my chest, and this is the kind of guy I am. I'm a bad guy. The other thing that kind of drove me nuts about them is when they seemed like, this is going to be a weird phrase, they seemed like perfectly reasonable bad guys. In the sense of like, hey, I'm a bad guy, I'm going to do bad things, I want more money or whatever it is I want. But then when they started doing like the chaotic things, they started laughing and turning into the Joker, where they're like, oh, there's chaos and I'm going to find it humorous and we're being cruel and we're going to laugh at it. It's like, guys, if you're going to be like chaotic like that, you got to be consistently chaotic. You can't just bring it out when you kill the cops.
Exactly, Dave. You bring up a great point. Those guys would have been served as the henchmen of a behind-the-scenes villain we find out later, or who's like a kingpin who comes in, or a corrupt mayor. So to your point, there's no, I think Tara said it best, there's no stakes, there's no backstory to the city to understand. They do mention they pay lip service to inflation and, kind of...
Yeah, okay.
Lip service.
And I think it's sort of like, okay, we're headed that way because of, actual real world.
Because we're headed that way.
Hey, Craptaculars, we'll be right back.
Hey, you guys, this is Tara, and boy, oh boy, do I wish I was about to talk to you about some super cool product or like a neat movie coming out, but I'm not, because America. Here at Cinema Craptaculus, we recognize that the medical privacy rights of millions of American women are no longer protected, and that safe and affordable reproductive care will not be accessible to women in every state. Each month, we'll share a podcast or organization that helps highlight and support women's reproductive rights and access to safe health care.
And this is John. This month, we'd like to highlight the Brigid Alliance, which is a referral-based service that provides travel, food, lodging, childcare, and other logistical support for people seeking abortions in an environment increasingly hostile towards women's reproductive care. For information on how to donate to the Brigid Alliance, or if you are in need of their services, go to brigidalliance.org. That's all one word, BRIGID alliance.org. Thank you. And now, back to the show. I think that there weren't many other characters. The mom and I think like the really crazy, creepy girl in the gang were the only females other than like a newscaster. It was very light on females.
Yeah, shocking.
And the mom, they're trying to make her a little bit of like an Aunt May, but she's also like inner city, irresponsible mom who will just take stolen money. And they're trying to make it real in the sense that, like, I did kind of buy into the poverty life. I mean, they really painted a really bleak world, kind of like in some of the, like, Daredevil on Netflix. But without sort of context of other characters and other players, I don't think they had much to work with the characters. You're right. These guys were bad guys, but they just became crazy.
Yeah, they became comical bad guys, comic book bad guys.
That scene we talked about where the Nemesis 2.0 goes out and he stands on top of the car and he's like, everybody follow me. It's like, yeah, but why? Like, what are you doing for us that the city is not? Like, are you going to clean up the garbage? Because like, if you're throwing out trash bags to everybody and we're like, we're going to do a community cleanup, I'm behind Nemesis. Like, let's go, Nemesis 2.0. I'm in.
That would have been awesome. Brought to you by Glad.
The kid's story is supposed to be basically, does he go down one path or the other? Which is kind of like the choice of Stallone's character, and we get a big reveal later.
Yes.
We see the kid hanging out with the gang, but I don't really see the struggle. He witnesses like someone getting popped right in front of him, but we don't see him really do any, like I thought, okay, he's going to get really embedded and he's going to get caught up in some real crime. They don't really have him do much.
No.
Yeah, you're right.
They drop all these threads like, is Joe training him and that's going to have a payoff? No.
Right. Nope.
Is he going to go down a dark path and puts people in, like his mom in jeopardy?
Yeah.
No.
Mm-mm. Is he going to join Nemesis? Is he going to turn bad?
Yeah.
No. I feel like that kid was a really good actor. Like I felt like for however old he is, for what the script he was given, he did as much as he could do.
Yeah.
I agree. And I also found him very kind of like, I was charmed by him in his role. And usually like you get kids in the movie and I'm out. Like I said earlier, there was this underlying sense of real danger to his performance, even if it wasn't specific. That felt like, it just to me felt like an older school movie.
Well, I will hand it to them because what they did is they had this kid hound Stallone's character like, you're Samaritan. And he never really says one way or the other. He finally just, he admits to just having powers because obviously he gets run over and kind of pops his joints back together and goes drinks ice cream. And he's like, yeah, well, I need to stay cool when I get hurt. But he never really says that the kid's right. And I think that was kind of clever because I think that the twist was interesting enough.
Interesting that you said that, because I felt like I saw the twist the very first scene they had when when the kid's like, "You're Samaritan," and Sly's like, and I was like, oh well, I mean, again, like the twist is not that it's not that hard to see coming.
No.
I as soon as they said twin brothers,
Yes.
I was like, oh,
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone is the bad guy.
Oh, so I'm the one that got suckered by the very obvious story point.
It wasn't Sixth Sense-ish where it was super
No.
hidden,
No.
and you had to really think about it. Because, like, as soon as and like, I wasn't even sure if that was a twist or not.
Yeah.
I guess it was. I
It
mean,
was supposed to be, Dave.
yeah, it was supposed to be. I did enjoy the moment. Well, because I'm a sucker for stupid 80s action movies, but I enjoyed the moment where new Nemesis was like, I will defeat the good guy. And Sly Stallone was like, who says I'm the good guy?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, kick some ass, Sly.
Well, and honestly, the kid kind of accepted it pretty well. The real victim on all this is Nemesis 2.5. His whole world is turned upside down. The kid's kind of like, it sucks, but hey, you've been nice to me. But no, the villain is the one who's now like really traumatized.
That's true. He does freak
And I
out.
didn't
He's
really
like, oh my
understand-
God.
And what was the deal with this hammer? So the hammer is this like this
God.
Thor. It's the MacGuffin that the guy gets pretty
Yes.
easily from the police department's poorly locked up locker as evidence. And so he gets the hammer because he's just going to be Nemesis. And I guess it's used. The hatred of Samaritan went into its making. Or the hatred of Nemesis.
Blood. It's the blood. It was like some of Samaritan's blood goes into the hammer, so it's the only thing that could potentially kill him.
But
right?
2.5 doesn't get any powers, and he goes toe to toe with
Although
Stallone.
he does get the ability to smash things.
Yes, he does.
He is the Gallagher of Samaritan.
He did. I was thinking as an actor, I'm like, you would get to smash a lot of shit. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
But Stallone, one punch should have taken that guy out.
Literally. Again, that's what I don't understand either.
He had Nemesis mask on as well. And a weird chin beard. So those three things, hammer, mask, chin beard, equals
Power.
resistance to...
So then, okay, so if
I don't
Nemesis
know.
is really dead and like his power's in his helmet, like we should have known that. But otherwise, it's just like a helmet.
Here's the problem I have, and it goes to Marvel movies and all the superheroes, and I get in arguments with the nerds. And it's like when one superpowered hero is attacking another superpowered hero whose superpowers are maybe in appendages or something like Dr. Octopus. Spider-Man should be able to, as soon as he gets past the arms, he's just a human, and he can just tap him and knock him out. A punch would take Alfred Molina's heads off. And they always say, well, Spidey knows he's fighting someone who's technically, so he's going to pull his punch. Really? They don't look like pulled punches. So it's like, so maybe the hammer is something for Stallone to, manage. But the minute he makes contact with that guy's head, snap skull, it's over.
Yeah.
Movie ends.
It's interesting, too, because I will say, like, the last, like, let's say 15 minutes, I thought were the best part of the movie because there was a couple things that happened. One,
I was asleep.
we get, also. But we gave, Stallone did a Stallone thing that I want from an 80s movie, is he had a bad line he delivered so well. So, like, he throws, like, or something, there's a blast behind him. Like, there's an explosion behind him. And he's walking head out, and there's an explosion behind him, and he says, have a blast. And I was like, yes, I'm here for this. Like, I'm here for, like, that Stallone moment, because he can still pull that off. I'm interested. And then there were two very big, emotional, revealing things that he says to the boy in the last 15 minutes that I'm like, why didn't you say this the first 10 minutes of this movie? Because then if we're watching a movie about, like, one of the things he says is he's like, good and bad live in all of us. Okay, so that is your character's main struggle through the movie, is a person who's living in disguise, who's trying to fight all his instincts and survive and, like, get through it. I mean, that is an interesting and admirable character story I wish we could have seen in this movie. But they wait till the last 15 minutes, and he says it in one line. And you're like, okay.
Should we just rate this? Should we just go ahead and rate this now?
Yes.
Fuck yes. God damn it.
John's like, we're done.
Cinema Craptaculus ratings.
So we have a 3-tiered rating system here at Cinema Craptaculus. The top tier, Cinema Craptaculus, this time Great Samaritan, is a must-see. The second tier, Craptaculus, hey, it's redeemable heroics. This is a pretty good movie on a Sunday afternoon. And then Utter Crap, or My New Nemesis. This is, well, it's utter crap.
I was just going to say also, thank you for having me. We didn't mention that I'm an interloper on this week's episode. So.
You just blended right in that it just felt like family. I didn't,
We are. Right. Well, that also makes this my new nemesis. So thanks a lot for having me on with this pile of garbage. I don't. Oh. I definitely fell asleep once for sure for like a good 10 minutes. And then I woke up and it was the same scene. It's like...
But a half an hour later.
It literally was. I was like, wait, I know I just fell asleep because the clock moved. But like, this is the same exact scene. Yeah, no, this is... Sorry, Sly. I want to root for my grandpa, but I can't do it. I can't do it.
Well, Tara Stallone has spoken.
It's my new nemesis. It's utter crap.
Crap.
I couldn't in good conscience tell anybody to watch even 5 minutes of this, sadly.
I am going to go... redeemable heroics.
Okay.
To me, this was Craptaculus. And you know what? I almost went Cinema Craptaculus. But
wow.
I 100% agree with you. It is a slow build. A slow build. How do you say build? There it is. A slow build. And it took like 25 to 35 minutes before Sly Stallone and the kids start talking to each other. And that's where it kind of started getting interesting, but it was like way too late in the game. And talking to you guys, you've tipped down my excitement for the movie a little bit. But I still think there's some really great stuff here. I love the idea of the character of the bad guy trying to be not even trying to be a good guy, just trying to get by. Just wanting to get by. I find that really interesting. I like the idea of like twin brothers who had superpowers. It's a good origin story, but they were like opposite ends of the legal spectrum and fighting each other. I think that's kind of a neat comic book origin story. And I liked the kid, but wow, was it, in the hands of, you brought up RoboCop, in the hands of Verhoeven, this might have been like a amazing satire.
Wildly violent.
Mm-hmm.
Wildly violent, but wildly funny and wildly on the nose, and so much more stakes. And all you had to do was just lift RoboCop. Just lift that, what do you call that structure? Like at the end of Act 1, this happens.
Yeah.
In the mid, this happens. And then it reveals that the mayor is the true bad guy and Samaritan has to kill him. Oh, talking about mob mentality, at the very end, all those same people came out and were like cheering for Samaritan.
Yeah, this city is very easily swayed.
Yeah, it's like, you know what? Anyone with a bullhorn can rile this city up and get garbage on the streets.
Well, guys, I am going to... I'm a big fan of the minuses and pluses, which our rigid Craptaculus rating system does not afford. So I'm going to say this is my redeemable heroic nemesis, which is basically
nice.
a Craptaculus minus, but not quite an utter crap plus. Because I think, Dave, I agree with you. I do appreciate just the concept itself. The fact that there's a million superhero films. The Boys is a series that's doing a lot of good things with flipping the notion of a hero on its ear.
Yeah.
And this one kind of does it in a way that I obviously fell for, because the twist got me a little bit. And I give him credit for that. Unfortunately, it ran up against those really terrible walls of needing a good script, having some solid acting from your lead, and needing a budget. And when you have those roadblocks,
terrible walls.
It's hard to make a movie.
Yeah. If we could just get over not having a good script and a leading man who after 50 years can't act, and no money, then we would have something. But no, I think that there were probably things they could have done budget-wise to round out things. I think going back to RoboCop, I think RoboCop did a great job of, as violent as it was, you got more perspective of the hero's point of view.
Yeah.
And this one, they were a little torn between, is it the kid's story or is it Sly's story?
Yeah.
And I think a good writer can balance that. And I think that maybe again, this falls in the films that we see on Netflix all the time where they're just almost good enough to be a real movie.
So
this
close.
one may not be there, so I don't think I could really recommend it. But for the people who are into the superhero genre, who did like Unbreakable with Samuel L. Jackson and Bruce Willis, this kind of calls back to that. I think it rips off too much of a lot of the Dark Knight movies.
Yeah.
But and I'm curious, of course, you know that this type of film, they do set things up for a sequel, right?
Oh, yes, they tried. They sure did.
Which Tara has to review.
I would may I amend my review very quickly? Because here's what I would say. I would maybe lean into John's plus minus. The only reason I say that is for any writer or any person who does like these superhero movies, who's maybe writing an original superhero movie. This is a really good exercise to see how you would have fixed this script. Because again, as I got bored because they were doing the same scene over and over, I kept analyzing, how do you fix this? Because as Dave, your review is right. The premise and all of the pieces were there to make a pretty good movie. But script-wise is where it really felt. Like it really, really, I was like, it's stakes. It's the wrong motivations for our characters. It's the wrong, like, who are we following? Like, what do we care about the antagonist? And I actually do think I found myself going, how would I fix this? And I came up just as an interesting exercise for those of you, script analysis. And I'm a dork. Thank you so much.
You are a dork. Dork.
Thank
Nerd.
you. Okay, I won't be asked back. I understand that. That's fine.
No, we just tear the movie apart. We don't have solves.
Fine. Fair.
She just talked a lot about screenwriting. I think she's going to rip the mask off, and we're going to find out that Stephanie and Tara are twins.
Dum, bum, bum, bum.
And that it really was Stephanie the whole time.
It's funny, I'm just a puppet. I know that that's not hard to not believe.
You're like Pinocchio. You want to be a real girl.
I do.
That's really creepy. Tara is like holding her arms up like she's a marionette, and it's kind of freaking me out.
Because my gangly, langly joints and digits, yeah, it's freaking.
See, Stallone's kind of, I don't want to say he has a resurgence because he doesn't really go away, but he's got... No, I mean, he's done a good job of keeping himself. We could do a separate show on aging movie stars. Maybe I'll do an expanded universe. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger's done a better job of segueing into, I'm going to be an older guy who used to be a younger fitter. He seems to be a little more at home, whereas Sly seems to want to resist the clock a lot.
Yeah.
And
he seems to want to be like, I'm 55.
Right. But I give him credit in this movie because there is a lot of like grumpy old man jokes, and he leans into that, and I give him credit for that. And yes, on a side note, his wife, they are filing for divorce after 27 years, a long time. And it literally was the week that this was coming out. And then I think he's doing a press tour for Tulsa King, which is a series he's got coming out. So he's definitely in the mix. And I think, honestly, this film on Amazon will be a bump for him.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah, like the cocaine in the 80s.
That he allegedly he didn't do that. Let's be real.
No, he's a pillar of fitness. I'm sure he was surrounded by everybody doing coke, and he's like doing push-ups.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, again, over the top. How do you get one arm so strong?
You know what? Practice, practice, practice.
He's legacied so many of his characters. I'm surprised he doesn't bring that character back.
Oh,
I would love that character to come back.
That'd be pretty cool.
And he to be the grandfather of his son who's in the shipping business now.
Oh, yeah.
And he has an estranged son, and they're fighting over that estranged son.
Oh.
I have to say, I really believe that a 76-year-old could still arm wrestle versus, like, throwing guys across the room like this. Like, I actually do think he beat me. There's no question about it.
Yeah, he'd beat me too.
By the way, they put a lot of budget into this burning building. Those two humans would be so fried and smoking hairs.
Oh my God.
It was literally like a hearth-baked oven that you cook pizza in, and they're just running through it. For the kids, fine. No smoke inhalation.
One of my notes was like, I'm so glad that the fire held at bay while they had this emotional moment. I mean, it was like 8 minutes of them sitting there. And then when they do turn on water, he only uses on a Samaritan. I'm like, you saw that the whole time? The building was on fire. What
Why
are you
not leave
doing?
it going? They turned it off. Like, they're in the middle of a burning building. Like, well, we don't want to waste water. We got them all.
We don't want to waste water.
Well, the other thing was, to rescue them, Sly Stallone picks the kid up and is holding him like, I don't know, like he's carrying him over the threshold.
Yeah. It was more like a wedding.
And runs towards a burning wall. Now, I don't know much about superhuman physics, but I do know you put a burning wall a boy, and then a superhuman behind the boy. The one thing that's not going to survive is the boy.
No, he's going to wake up. The Stallone's going to get up wearing a kid apron.
I kept expecting them to do to highlight that mistake and have Stallone spin around at the last moment so he jumps backwards out of this burning building to protect the kid. But no, just pancake kid.
And
on a burning wall.
And the shot when they're in the other buildings after they went through the walls, the kid is on the bottom. I'm like, and he's on the bottom of you? There's no way this kid's lungs are intact. This guy is dead.
The director was probably like, hey, Sly, let's have the kid be on top. Nobody's on top of Sly.
That's right.
It's almost like when you're near a super being, you absorb their ability. Like when Superman's flying with Lois Lane at 30,000 feet, she absorbs his warmth because otherwise she'd be, frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And hanging.
I think the kid absorbed Nemesis, we shall call him, his strength. I wish I absorbed his strength to, maybe give this a better review, but,
I don't know. We reviewed after we gave a review, so.
We did. So should we re-rate this?
We should re-rate it.
Hey, it's a new thing. We're going to do our ratings in the middle of the show. You know what? I'm giving it Great Samaritan. This movie was awesome.
I love how we always convince each other. The last person who goes is always like, well, I've listened to your other arguments, and you're right, it is a piece of shit. Or, you know what, it's not that bad. Does that happen on B-sides? Do you guys convince each other? Or do you all, stig
I'm swayed. I can be swayed.
I can be swayed. Yeah, I can always be swayed. I am the city when it comes to mob mentality.
Dave's like, whatever you want. Whatever you want.
Get on top of a car and start shouting shit at me, I'm in.
We need to make Stephanie and Adam review this film on their own time, do a mini podcast each and see if where they land.
I want to just do a reaction video of them watching it and time how long it takes for them to fall asleep.
Mine was about 30 minutes.
Well, Tara, once again, thank you. We're introducing you at the end. Tara is our special guest.
Thank you. Very special.
And Tara, where can they reach you on the socials?
A very special guest. A special guest. I hope I get nominated for an Emmy for a very special guest appearance. At Tartar Sauce 1. That's my Insta. That's my Twitter. There's other stuff. What are we doing, Dave? There's other stuff that's coming up. I don't know.
Yeah, you got anything you want to plug?
I still have a book coming out.
Yeah.
Date TBD. Well, it's called Tips
Oh, that's
for
right. Tell us about your
Oh,
book.
for fuck's
I don't know. We never talked about your book. I mean, I really would like to hear more about your book.
It's a book.
No, seriously,
it's
though.
Tips for Your Last Year on Earth. It's going to be released by Vulpine Press, which is a UK publisher, John. So there you go. A nod to you then.
So maybe I'll get a head start on it before the American readers.
You might.
Oh, wow.
You'll get 9 hours ahead of us, at least
Nice.
on the West Coast. More soon.
It sounds like it's based on relative current events, 2020 and beyond, or was it something else?
Literally. It's basically, I feel like everybody predicts the end of time and the end of Earth, every year. It's either some religious cult and or climate change. And I feel like, you know what? We should live our lives it's our last year on Earth. Not to do good things, but to make things worse.
Well, if this were my last year on Earth, I don't think I'd be watching the films that we review. So I'm going to just see you, Dave. It's been fun.
True.
Peace out.
Yeah.
I just want to note that somehow Tara is Nemesis 3.0 now.
Fine.
But instead of a hammer and getting on top of a car, she's writing.
Yeah, my thread is buy my book, everybody. Buy my book. Will it help us? No, but you should buy it. That's what I would do. And then Dave will be like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll buy it.
Oh, yeah. Get me 2 copies. I need to give one away for Christmas.
It is a great Christmas gift, everybody. Put that out there now.
Give the Gift of the End of the World by Tara O'Brien.
Thank you so much. I'm assuming it's going to be a pre-Christmas release. Just in time for the holidays.
Just in time for the end of the world.
Again, could be. TBD. Still TBD, everybody.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us on this Cinema Craptaculus journey. This is Dave, and ever present with me are...
Tara.
And John.
And remember, a bad movie is just as hard to make as a good one. It's just a lot easier to make fun of.
Hey, Craptaculus fans, thank you to our listeners and our sponsors for supporting us. And hey, if there is a movie that you would just love for us to review, or you have comments about our shows like praise or complaints and gripes, please shout it to our attention at Craptaculus on Twitter and Instagram. And if you haven't checked out all of our various Cinema Craptaculus shows, you are missing out on some good stuff. There's B-sides, real debates, the expanded universe, and Cinema Craptaculus itself. Now, you go and have yourself a craptacular day.